There's a moment when she stares at you, waiting for your reaction. You feel that invisible pressure in your chest, that instant where every word you say will determine if you maintain your power or surrender it completely. Most men respond immediately, almost by instinct. They explain, justify, try to convince. They lean forward with a slightly desperate energy that betrays their entire body language. They speak faster, raise their voice, gesticulate excessively. And it's precisely in that microsecond that they unknowingly give away all their value, because every unsolicited explanation is a silent confession of inferiority. Every justification is a blank check of power that you sign and voluntarily hand over. And she knows it, not consciously, but on an instinctive, primitive level, where true attraction decisions are made without rational filter. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you why strategic silence is the most powerful weapon in any interaction with a woman. By 8 minutes, you'll understand the fatal mistake you make that makes you seem weak, even if you're extraordinary in everything else. By 15 minutes, you'll know the exact technique applied in 3 situations you'll face this week. By 22 minutes, you'll have the complete system that radically transforms how the most desirable women perceive you. Because here's the truth no one tells you. He who explains, submits. He who stays silent, dominates. If this has already sparked something in your mind, hit like right now and let's continue. Think of chess as our master metaphor. Most people see chess as a game of constant movement, of permanent activity. But grandmasters know that real power lies in calculated patience, in those moments of apparent inaction where tension builds and the opponent makes mistakes out of pure anxiety. It's exactly the same in the game of attraction. Let me explain exactly where you're losing without realizing it. The invisible problem you face isn't your physique, your money, or even your social status. It's something much more fundamental and yet completely correctable, your compulsive need to explain. This need has deep roots in our masculine psychology. From childhood, we were programmed to give reasons, to justify decisions, to explain behaviors. In school, with our parents, with authorities. The common man responds immediately when a woman questions his behavior. Why are you late? And he's already giving an elaborate explanation, with unnecessary details, almost begging for understanding with every word. Result, she detects insecurity, and attraction subtly diminishes. The strategic man, on the other hand, responds with a meaningful pause, maintains unflinching eye contact, and then simply says, I had something to handle. Result, she feels curiosity, intrigue, and the power dynamic remains intact or even shifts in your favor. The real cost of this constant explanation pattern is devastating in the long run. First, it destroys the perception of your intrinsic worth. When you constantly explain yourself, you unconsciously communicate that you need external approval. Second, it establishes a dynamic where any woman feels entitled to question your decisions. Third, and perhaps most destructive, it kills mystery, a fundamental element of sustained female attraction. Why does this happen? Psychologically, unsolicited explanation activates the social validation circuit in our primitive brain. It's a conditioned response from childhood. We explain to avoid punishment, to maintain approval, to continue belonging to the group. But in the context of attraction, this same mechanism that protected us as children now completely sabotages our adult masculine presence. It's like a boxer who instinctively drops his guard against certain opponent moves. It's not a conscious decision. It's an automatic programming that needs to be consciously recognized and recalibrated. The average man sees communication as information transfer. He believes that by explaining more, by being transparent, he will generate trust and connection. The man who understands deep feminine psychology knows that communication is primarily a transfer of energy and emotion, not data. And strategic silence transmits far more powerful energy than 1,000 explanations. Perhaps you've already experienced that uncomfortable moment when she asks, "What are you thinking about?" And you immediately feel that internal pressure to reveal your thoughts, as if it were a contractual obligation in the relationship. Or when she questions why you talk to a certain woman at a party, and you find yourself explaining the situation with unsolicited details, internally sweating as you watch each word sink you deeper. Or that anxious feeling when you don't immediately respond to her messages, and then you feel you must justify your absence with elaborate explanations. There's also that pattern where, after making a simple decision, like choosing a restaurant, You find yourself preemptively explaining why you chose it before anyone even questions your choice. It's like a musician who plays all the right notes but at the wrong tempo. The technically perfect composition turns into noise due to a simple matter of timing. The consequences extend beyond individual interactions. Internally, every time you unnecessarily explain yourself, your subconscious registers, "My judgment isn't enough. I need external validation for my decisions." It's a slow but constant erosion of your inner core of confidence. It's an invisible wound that bleeds personal authority daily. He who explains automatically places himself in the position of the accused. He who maintains strategic silence naturally assumes the position of the judge. But identifying the problem is just the beginning. Now I'm going to show you exactly how to apply the forbidden method, step by step, in 3 situations you'll face this week. The core technique is called magnetic void, and it works precisely because it goes against everything you've been taught about communication. It's not complicated in its structure, but it requires conscious practice because it contradicts decades of social programming. First, when you receive any questioning, do not respond immediately. Create a full 3-second space. Yes, count them mentally. This space already communicates that you're not reacting reflexively, but by choice. Second, maintain constant eye contact without forced intensity. It's not a defiant stare, but a calm one, like someone observing something mildly interesting but not crucial. Third, respond with fewer words than expected, eliminating all justification. Finally, introduce a subtle redirection that shifts the focus. The result is immediate. The energetic dynamic reverses, and she unconsciously begins to seek your approval. Most respond with anxiety and urgency, as if they have something to prove. You respond with deliberate calm, like someone who needs to prove nothing to anyone. The difference is not subtle, it's abysmal in psychological impact. He who masters silence masters the conversation. Let's see how to apply this in a professional or social context. Imagine you're at a gathering with friends, and an attractive woman questions your opinion in front of everyone. The atmosphere subtly changes. You feel all eyes on you, that moment where social hierarchy is silently recalibrating. The common man reacts immediately. He leans forward, speaks 20% faster, starts with, "What I meant was," or "Let me explain," gesticulating more than usual. His eyes seek approval in the glances of others. His body language screams insecurity. Others perceive it, especially her. Attraction plummets even if no one mentions it. You, on the other hand, lean back slightly in your chair. You maintain direct yet relaxed eye contact. You let those 3 crucial seconds pass in silence. The tension builds, but not for you, for her. Then you say, in a slightly lower voice than your normal tone, "Interesting perspective. Why do you see it that way?" Nothing more. Now she has to explain herself, while you calmly observe. The dynamic completely reversed. You defended nothing, but you dominated everything. In those seconds of silence, you communicated more power than any elaborate argument. And everyone felt it, especially her. Because he who defends himself has already lost. He who redirects always controls. Now let's take this into an intimate personal context. You're starting to date a woman you're interested in. After a couple of dates, she sends you a message questioning why you didn't text her all day. Here, the pressure to explain yourself is almost overwhelming. The average man immediately responds with a paragraph explaining his busy day, perhaps adding an unnecessary "sorry" and several emojis to soften the situation. Result, he unconsciously establishes that he must report and justify his time, like an employee to his boss. Attraction imperceptibly diminishes. You, applying the magnetic void, wait at least 20-30 minutes before responding, the digital equivalent of 3 in-person seconds. Then you simply write, "Busy day. How was yours?" No explanation, no apology, no justification. And most importantly, you redirect the conversation back to her. The impact is dramatic. She expected an elaborate explanation and received a calm response that also requires her participation. Her mind starts working, generating curiosity and intrigue. Instead of seeing you as someone who must explain his absence, now you're someone whose time and attention are valuable. Attraction subtly increases. In the digital and social media context, this principle is amplified because communication is stripped of nonverbal cues. Imagine you post something on your social media and receive a comment questioning or even criticizing your stance. Most respond with justificatory paragraphs trying to clarify their position, showing references, visibly striving to defend their point. The more extensive the defensive comment, the weaker it appears, regardless of the content. Applying our technique, you simply leave the comment there, without an immediate response. If you do decide to respond eventually, you do so with something minimal like, interesting perspective, or even better, a question that returns the pressure. What exactly makes you think that? The result is fascinating. While others fall into long defensive debates, you maintain an enigmatic presence that generates far more interest and respect. It's no coincidence that the most followed people on social media almost never respond to criticism or questioning. Strategic silence communicates a superior status to any defense, no matter how eloquent. But be warned, there are 3 common mistakes when applying this technique. The first is to confuse strategic silence with hostile indifference. This happens when you maintain silence but with an energy of resentment or passive anger. The result is toxic. Instead of intrigue, you generate rejection. The correction is to maintain a calm and slightly curious energy during silences. The second mistake is applying the technique mechanically, without adapting it to the emotional context. Many use it as a rigid formula without considering the relational moment. If she is genuinely concerned about something important, strategic silence can be interpreted as a lack of empathy. The solution is to calibrate, use the technique primarily in moments of social testing or status questioning, not in situations of legitimate emotional vulnerability. The third mistake, the most subtle and dangerous, overcompensating after silence. Many maintain the initial silence correctly, but then feel guilty and end up explaining themselves doubly afterward. This completely negates the effect and makes you seem manipulative. If you notice this tendency, the correction is simple. After strategic silence, maintain the same economy of words throughout the interaction. The technique works perfectly on the surface, but there's a deeper, almost invisible level that separates those who merely apply methods from those who truly transform their entire relational reality. The counterintuitive truth that few men understand is that strategic silence isn't really about communication. It's about identity. Modern society has convinced us that we must constantly explain ourselves, that open communication means revealing everything, justifying every decision, exposing every thought. They've sold us total transparency as the supreme virtue in relationships. But on an anthropological, psychological, and historical level, this idea is completely false. Historically, women are not attracted to men who explain every move. They are attracted to men who maintain an inaccessible inner core, an autonomous decision-making center that doesn't need external validation. In evolutionary terms, this type of man represents security and leadership capability under pressure. Superficially, everyone believes that communicating more is better for relationships. At an intermediate level, some understand that communicating strategically is more effective. But at the deepest level, the truth is that you must become someone who naturally communicates less because they need less external approval. The evidence for this principle is everywhere if you know how to observe. Think of the masculine figures who consistently generate the most attraction throughout history and cultures. From literary archetypes to movie stars, from historical leaders to modern entrepreneurs. The pattern is undeniable. Economy of words, action over explanation, mystery over complete transparency. Actor Marlon Brando barely spoke in many of his most magnetic scenes, yet he completely dominated the screen. Ernest Hemingway revolutionized literature with his direct style, cutting all unnecessary explanation. Steve Jobs created an aura of calculated mystery around Apple that generated devotees, not just customers. You yourself have experienced this without realizing it. Think about the last time you met someone who spoke little, but every word seemed to carry weight. How you unconsciously attributed more intelligence and depth to them than to those who explained everything exhaustively. Why you felt more curiosity to know their thoughts than those of completely transparent people. He who reveals everything has nothing left to offer. He who maintains depth generates infinite exploration. When you truly internalize this principle, a fundamental transformation occurs in how you perceive yourself. Before, you saw your worth as something that needed to be constantly explained, demonstrated, justified. Now you understand that your worth is intrinsic, that it doesn't increase with explanations but rather is diluted by them. When you fully master this, you begin to feel an inner calm, even under direct questioning. You don't feel that compulsive urge to fill silences. You naturally allow others to explain themselves while you observe. People, especially women, begin to elaborate more on their thoughts when they speak with you, trying to capture your full attention. And perhaps most significantly, interactions that previously left you energetically drained now feel neutral or even revitalizing. Someone who has mastered this principle doesn't need to consciously apply techniques. Their fundamental identity has changed. They don't think, "I must apply strategic silence now." They simply feel no inner compulsion to justify themselves, just as a lion feels no need to explain why it's a lion. True mastery is not doing, but being. Now that you understand the depth of the principle, let's transform this understanding into a practical and complete system. I'll give you 3 precise tools you can master immediately, followed by a detailed plan for the next 7 days. The first tool is called pressure inversion. It's a specific linguistic technique you use when you feel the pressure to explain yourself. It works like this. When you receive any kind of questioning, instead of explaining yourself, you respond with a calibrated question that subtly returns the pressure. For example, if she asks, "Why didn't you tell me you were going out with your friends?" Instead of explaining, you respond exactly, "Was there something specific you were worried about?" In a neutral, curious tone, not defensive or accusatory. You do not vary this structure. The effect is immediate, the dynamic reverses, and she must explain her questioning instead of you justifying your behavior. The second tool is minimal affirmation. This technique replaces long explanations with short statements that don't justify but simply affirm your position or decision. It works especially well in situations where the pressure to explain yourself is intense. It's applied like this. When you feel the urge to explain a decision, you simply affirm the fact without the explanation. If you're asked why you chose a certain option, you respond, "I considered the alternatives. This is the best option." Period. You don't add reasons, comparisons, or justifications. The impact is powerful. You communicate complete conviction and personal authority without entering the slippery terrain of justification. The third tool, perhaps the most advanced, is valuable redirection. This technique not only avoids explanation, but completely shifts the focus of attention towards something that adds value, creating a positive experience that replaces the questioning dynamic. It's implemented like this. After a strategic silence in response to a question, you introduce a completely new topic or perspective that generates excitement or interest. For example, if you're questioned about a decision, after the silence you can say, "I just remembered something you'll find interesting," and share an observation, story, or plan that you know will positively capture her attention. The effect is transformative. Instead of getting caught in an interrogation dynamic, you create a new conversational lane where you naturally regain leadership. He who masters these 3 tools is never cornered in negative conversations or dynamics. Now I'm going to give you a surgical plan for the next 7 days that will transform these techniques into a natural part of your behavior. For the first 2 days, your sole focus is to implement pressure inversion. Don't try to apply all 3 tools simultaneously, just this one. Every time you feel the urge to explain yourself, and it will happen at least 5 times in these 2 days, apply the exact formula. Pause, eye contact, calibrated question that returns the pressure. What you'll notice? Significant internal discomfort on the first day, as if you're breaking an important social rule. By the second day, that feeling will start to lessen. You'll observe that people, especially women, begin to elaborate more on their questions or challenges. The energetic dynamic will subtly begin to shift in your favor. Pay special attention to how these interactions feel internally, not just the external outcome. On days 3 and 4, while maintaining the first tool, you add minimal affirmation. Now you have 2 active options in your repertoire. When questioned, first apply a meaningful pause, then decide. Do I invert the pressure with a question, or simply affirm my position without explanation? Here the game visibly deepens because you're starting to break communication patterns established over years. You'll notice some initial resistance from people accustomed to you explaining everything. Some will insist with more questions, trying to extract the usual explanations. This resistance is a sign that the technique is working. You are changing the relational dynamic. Stay the course, slightly adjusting your tone but not the structure of your responses. Days 5, 6, and 7 are for full integration, incorporating valuable redirection. Now you operate with the complete system. For minor questions, you apply pressure inversion. In situations of greater pressure, you use minimal affirmation. And when you perceive that the interaction could turn negative, you implement valuable redirection. Specifically, observe how the energy of conversations changes, how people adapt their way of communicating with you, and especially how women respond differently to your presence. Adjust the intensity of application based on feedback. If you perceive extreme resistance, slightly soften the implementation without abandoning the fundamental principle. At this point, you'll start to feel a new inner solidity in social interactions. It's not imagination. It's the measurable result of having changed the fundamental dynamic of your relationships, especially with women. And this is just the beginning of the transformation. But pay maximum attention now, because there are 3 errors that can destroy everything you've built with this system, even if you apply all the techniques correctly. Error number 1, excessive post-compensation. Many men perfectly implement strategic silence and the tools in the moment, but hours or days later, they feel residual guilt and end up explaining themselves retrospectively. About the other day, I wanted to clarify that this error completely negates the effect and also makes you seem insecure about your own decisions. The precise correction is simple. Once a topic has passed without explanation, never return to explain it unless there's a genuinely important reason, unrelated to your need for approval. Error number 2, inconsistent application depending on the person or context. This happens especially when you implement these techniques with everyone except the person you care most about impressing. It's a classic psychological error. You reserve your most compliant behavior precisely for the person you most want to attract. Consequence, you reinforce the exact negative dynamic you're trying to change with the most important person. The solution is to start with less emotionally significant people, but gradually apply the same standard to absolutely everyone without exception. The third error, the most subtle and dangerous of all, confusing absence of explanation with absence of emotional connection. Some men incorrectly interpret this method as a license to become emotionally distant or cold. They start suppressing not only unnecessary explanations, but also genuine expressions of connection. If you notice your interactions becoming mechanical or artificially distant, the correction is crucial. Strategic silence eliminates justifications, not authentic connection. You can and should express genuine emotions, simply without the explanatory or justificatory framework. He who avoids these 3 critical errors not only implements a technique, but permanently transforms his personal attractiveness. And before I finish, there's something crucial I need to share with you. Something that will define whether you simply consumed interesting information or truly transform your relational reality with women. Let's recap, but not as an academic summary. I'll give you the 4 fundamental pillars that now define your new way of operating in the world of masculine attraction. First pillar, the compulsive need to explain yourself systematically destroys your masculine attractiveness, eroding your personal authority every time you justify decisions that require no justification. Second pillar, strategic silence, implemented with precision through the 3 specific tools, pressure inversion, minimal affirmation, and valuable redirection, completely reverses the power dynamic in any interaction. Third pillar, true transformation occurs when you understand that this is not a communicative technique but a change of identity, abandoning the fundamental need for external validation that drives all unnecessary explanation. Fourth pillar, systematic implementation for 7 consecutive days, avoiding the 3 critical errors, permanently reconfigures how women perceive you and how you relate to your own personal worth. These 4 pillars are not abstract theory. They are pure architecture of personal power in the context of masculine attraction. Silence is not empty. It is the space where she projects her fascination. Now comes your challenge, and it starts in exactly 24 hours. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, but in exactly 24 hours. In that period, guaranteed, a situation will arise where you'll feel that familiar pressure to explain yourself. It could be in a work context, in a conversation with a woman you're interested in, or even in a family interaction. You'll recognize it immediately because you'll feel that almost irresistible internal urge to justify a decision or behavior. When it happens, I want you to apply the pressure inversion technique exactly as I taught you. Not a diluted or approximate version. The full version, meaningful pause, sustained eye contact, and then the question that returns the pressure. What makes you ask that? Or is there something specific you're worried about? You don't need to announce that you're trying something new. The beauty of this method is its invisibility. You simply implement, observe, and calibrate. Because when you do it, 3 things will happen. First, you'll notice an immediate shift in the energetic dynamic of the conversation. Second, you'll experience a completely new internal sense of solidity. And third, you'll observe a different reaction in the other person, especially if it's a woman. This is your moment of truth, your chance to prove to yourself, not to me, not to the world, but to yourself, that this is not abstract theory, but transformative reality. And after implementing it, come back and comment exactly this, word for word. Strategic silence is pure power. This isn't just a comment, it's identification. It's code between those who have stopped being reactive and become strategic. It shows that you didn't just consume 28 minutes of content, but you absorbed and applied the central principle, that you're not part of the majority who listen and forget, but one of the strategic silencers who transform knowledge into reality. This is our signal, our protocol. I'll read every comment and know exactly who understood the principle and who barely skimmed it. Comment right now. And since you've made it to the end of this video, there's something I specifically saved for you. In the next video, I'll reveal the perfect complementary principle, the art of magnetic presence. It's the other side of the coin that exponentially amplifies what you learned today. It involves a nonverbal component that 97% of men completely ignore, and it explains why some men, even without saying a single word, capture all female attention when they walk into a room. But that will be in the next video. Subscribe now and turn on notifications. The next video comes out in exactly 7 days. Remember the chess metaphor I mentioned at the beginning? Novices believe chess is won with brilliant, aggressive moves. Masters know it's won with strategic silences and controlled spaces. Now you understand. It's not about speaking less out of external discipline. It's about needing fewer explanations because your worth no longer depends on external validation. It's not a behavior you temporarily adopt. It's a permanent inner state. And when you achieve that inner state, the external world naturally reconfigures around you. True power never needs to explain itself. Now go and become the man who was always within you.